Okay, so week 13. So just 2 more weeks after this. So we've got some technology still to cover. So we need to finish up with what we were doing with our scanning to point cloud. So we'll talk about that first. Actually, the main thing we're going to be doing today in class is we're going to be dealing with 360 imagery. So today it's 360 imagery. Next week we're going to get 3D printing started. So I'm going to ask you to bring to class next week some sort of digital object. So I'll give you more instruction about that, but bring a digital object with you that we can bring into a slicing program and prepare it for 3D printing. And then I'll give you a schedule when you can come to the lab and do your 3D printing. So we are going to have 20 3D printers hopefully going, maybe a little bit less than that. So it means we can't all do it the same day. So there'll have to be a schedule. So I'll tell some of you will come on, or you can sign up. I'll probably do sign up. You can come one day and then pick your print up the next day. So it will be next week sometime or into the final week. So before the end of the term, you just need for that assignment, you just need to produce a 3D printed object. So, and I mentioned, I think way back, if you successfully 3D print an object, and I'll give you the specifications for what I want you to do, then I'll let you 3D print something else if there's time as well. So if you want to 3D print something, once you know how to do the slicing and the setup, we can do that. And then in the last week, so week 15 in class, we'll do an exercise to use VR headsets. We'll bring VR headsets into class. There won't be an assignment associated with that. That'll just be for us to do in class. But if you're not here in class that week and you don't do the assignment or don't do the exercise, and of course you're not participating in that exercise. So today is mostly, so I just sort of talked through it. Today is mostly to set up what you need to do, and also to my expectations of what you need to do for the assignments remaining. So we'll start off by going through some of this, we'll go back to the assignment 7, which is the one that I mentioned in the first week, the paper assignment. So I'll go through that and talk about what you need to do, and I have a handout for you for that. And then we'll finish what we did last week, which was the making a model from point clouds. We'll talk about that, get that set up. And then we'll talk about 360 imagery tours, so maybe in a half an hour or so. And I'll show you how to do that. We'll do an exercise in that. And I'll give you, once you have your assignment number 4 model done, then you can make a 360 tour out of that model. So you won't be able to do that probably till the following week, week 14, but I'll set you up for that. And then except for me giving the details of what you need to do for the 3D printing, you'll have all of your assignments set up. The 3D printing one, we should be able to do it all in class though, except that you just need to come to the lab to put your print on, and maybe come to the lab and pick up your print. All of that work should be done in the class. So we'll set you up and we'll get that done in class. I do want to just remind you, or point out to you if you didn't know about it, that the building show is taking place next week. So of course it's a great event to go and see materials, to see companies that are working in our field, in our industry, but they pick like one of the worst weeks of the year to do it. Every single year they have it, what's our week 14? So it's probably the worst week for anybody to take time and go to see this show. But if you have time, I have some students that are definitely going to go to the show. I have a link here in the presentation where you can get a free pass to get in to the show. So if you click on that link, you can register, and you can go to the show. So the show is on next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 9 in the morning until 5 on Wednesday, 9 in the morning until 5 on Thursday, and then until about 1 on Friday. So usually I can only get in, I can only go for about a couple hours in one of the afternoons because of my schedule, so you may not be able to make it. But I wanted to tell you about it, and I wanted to give you free entry, because you wouldn't want to, you want to pay if you can get in for free. So the link is there for going to that show for free. Okay, so I just talked about the assignments. So we have the assignment timelines here. So we're going to work on assignment 4 today. I'll set that up for you, and that assignment is going to be. That's not the right date. I fixed this. Second. That is going to be due. This should be essentially all of the assignments, I mean, I don't, as long as you do them before the end of the term, it's actually fine with me. I mean, I don't really care that much about late penalties, but we need to do some of the assignments in order to be able to do the next step, right? So we have to have the model done in order to be able to do the 360 tour that comes with that model. So let me just finish this. It's up. So I think this is week 14. That's Friday. December 7th? Sorry. I updated this and then I unupdated that, obviously. Let's see. Yeah, so that's going to be the 5th. I just wanted to make sure I don't put the wrong date in there. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not really going to worry about late penalties for a lot of this stuff, as long as you get it done and in, before the end of the term. For me, I want you to do the work like this week, because it's only going to be worse in week 14. It's only going to be worse in week 15. So I want us to try to do as much as we can next week, instead of pushing further. And then of course I have to mark everything, and I have to have everybody's mark in by the Tuesday after the end of the term. So the sooner we get this stuff done, the sooner I can, take some good time and mark it. Okay, so let me just, I think those are accurate now. And I want to go back and, I wanted to just, like in the very week number 1, right? We looked at this plan, and I pointed out to you that at the end of the term, you're going to have a paper that you need to write for this course that's worth 30% of the course grade. Like, it's a lot, right? It's the single biggest thing by far. It's 3 times more than any other assignment in the course. So it's a very important part of the course. Of course, you can't do the paper until you do the technology. You can't write a paper about 3D printing until you do 3D printing. So this week I want to set you up to make sure that you are going to be able to do that assignment, and you can ask me questions about it, and to sort of this is posted digitally, but I'm going to actually give you a handout which highlights, supposed to print two-sided, we didn't print two-sided. Okay, well that's okay. So I'll hand these out to you. And I'll just go through this. So this is the final assignment. So you just need to get this in before the end of the term. So this is like Friday. So I'll set you up for what you need to do for this. You can ask me questions. I'll talk about it a little bit next week too, just to make sure you know what you're doing. And I'm going to talk now about it just to make sure that you understand what this assignment's about. Here, you want one? I should ask if you actually want the paper, I suppose. But if anybody doesn't want the paper, you can always just leave it, and I will reuse it. Oh, these ones are double-sided. Okay, they were all supposed to be double-sided. Okay, this one starts. Sorry, here. I'll give this one. Okay, these are single-sided. Yeah, okay. So this one's double-sided. I asked for all of you to be double-sided because they didn't do some double-sided. So you get 2 pieces of paper instead of 1. You. Okay. Okay. Nice to see you here in the back row. Hi, how you doing? Hello. I don't wander around in this class as much as I usually do, so yes, you may. Okay, so let's talk about this assignment to make sure you understand what you need to do for this one. So this is not due for 2 weeks. Wow. Not due for 2 weeks. I almost said 3 weeks, but it's only 2 weeks, right? So it's a reflection paper on the course. So remember, I think I set this up for you. The program wanted to have a reflection paper somewhere in your study. So you have to write, a significant paper that's very personal. right? Not a research paper, but something where you express your ideas and your feelings about things. And so it seemed like a weird course to put it in. This is the technologies course, but I actually think it makes a lot of sense because you are responding to these different technologies and learning things or not learning about them. So I think it is actually a good subject to write this paper. So what this assignment is for you to highlight your experiences in this course. Okay, so first off, I'll tell you, if you missed any experiences, like say you weren't here when we did laser measuring or something, then in your paper you're simply going to say, in week 7, the class did laser measuring, but I was unable to make that class. So that's it. You just go on to the next thing. I'm not going to make a deduction from you from the paper if you didn't do the technology. If you didn't do the technology, your deduction is elsewhere, right? It's not going to be in this paper. So I only want you to write about the things that you actually experienced. So every technology experience, I want you to say something about it, and I'll talk about what that is. And then I also want you to focus on a single technology. So hopefully it's one you like the most or one you dislike the most, so you can give some opinion about it. But you're going to spend the focus on one thing. So it could be 3D printing. Like you do a little bit of extra. And from that technology, I want you to do just a little bit of research. Not very much, like which is highlighted here in the paper that I handed out. So you're going to be graded to how thorough you are, like is it well organized, how personal you are, so it should be a lot of I experienced this, we did this, right? It's going to be like a personal kind of thing that you write. How logical you are, so the organization should be pretty good, like the ideas should flow in an orderly fashion. Remember, I'm going to read this, right? I'm not going to assign my AI agent to review your work and give me a grade. I'm actually going to read all of your sentences and your words. So, it should make sense. And most important, it should be thoughtful, right? So I should feel like you thought about it. Okay, the laser measuring. Okay, so we did this laser measuring. Does it seem like a useful tool? Was it better than using a tape measure? How was it most useful? Was the one that I gave you easy to use? So you're going to be talking about your experience. So the subject is this course, but the exercise here is for you to have the task of thinking and giving your feelings and your observations, right, about things. So I don't want any AI content, except if you do, like say you may ask an AI agent or something to tell you about how are VR headsets used in interior design. It might give you some information, and you can put that research into your paper, that's okay. But otherwise, I don't want you to try to use an AI agent make me a paper that's a personal reflection paper about the following subjects. That's not going to work, right? It has to be your actual experiences. And this is actually, for some of you who've written this kind of thing before or who like to write, this is not a big deal. For some of you who don't like to do that, it's very important you actually do your best here because you're going to need to do that from time to time. Right? In your professional life, somebody's going to ask you, what did you think about that design? Right? Strengths and weaknesses. Do you think the team is prepared to do it? Do you think we should take that task on? So you need to be able to compose, right, some conceptual idea about, whatever that project is. This should take you 1,500 to 2,000 words. So that sounds like a lot when you first say it, 2,000 words, but it's about 3 or 4 pages, right, of single print. So about 3 or 4 pages of content. You absolutely can't do this in under 1,000 words. So I'm not saying you were going to fail this assignment if you do less than 1,000 words, but it's virtually impossible for you to describe all the technologies we use and give your opinion about them in 1,000 words. So most of you, from my experience, it's going to be about 1,200 to 1,500 words. Believe me, I'm going to get assignments that are 1,007 words. I know, I'll get some of those, right? But, hopefully, if you actually do this assignment the way you should do it, you're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 words. It's just how long it's going to take you to do this. So I'm going to tell you more about what you need to do, but I'll just tell you about my general expectations or what you should expect. Students in the past have told me, I asked in the last week, how long did it take you to work on the reflection paper? So the fastest job that most students say they took was about 2 hours. So those people who are good at writing and it comes spilling out of them, 2 hours. But for most people, it's probably 4 6, maybe even 8 hours to do this. Probably 4 to 6 hours to actually do a decent job on this. So this is the kind of thing you're going to want to set aside a Saturday afternoon, or some concentrated time where you can put some coffee on, sit down, relax, have your notes, or have Brightspace open, or have our presentations open, and you're going to be able to think about it, right? So it has to be a thoughtful process. So your challenge is you have so many things going on, you've got projects, you've got all your courses. You need to find some time where you can relax and just do this paper, right? Relax and do this paper. So what else do I want to tell you about? Right, due at the end of the term. So I have to submit marks for you by the Tuesday. So I have to read, 100 papers. So I have to add a couple I got to read like 20,000 words of writing, right? Or 20,000 or 200,000. It's a lot of words. So, I need you to definitely, get it in at that time. Don't ask for an extension on this assignment. This is one that's got to be done because I've got to be able to go through it. So I handed this out to you. It runs through, it tells you what I just told you. It lists some of the technologies that we covered. So just, you can sort of look at the list and think about the things. And it tells you how I'm going to grade the work. It also tells you a little bit about this idea of a reflection paper, but it tells you how I'm going to grade it. And it mentions, I should say one more thing here. It mentions that I want you to say something about all the technologies we covered, but I want you to pick one and focus on it. And so one should have about 300 to 500 words where you do a little bit of research. Like this is how laser measurers are used in the industry, right? People don't really use them anymore, or people do use them, or which model do people use? So a little bit of research. And I say that I want 3 citations, but those citations just have to be links to wherever you got the information. You don't have to give me APA or some format of citation. Just, if you do some research about your technology, just give me the links, right? So I can click on them and I can see where you got the information that you provided. And then here's how I'm going to mark it, right? So I have the way I'm going to mark it here. If you talk about the subjects that we actually did, effectively sort of 5 marks. If you talk about the impact of the technologies on you and on the industry, that's 5 marks. If you're very personal, it's 5 marks. If your focus has some information about it, your focus technology is 3 marks. If everything is well organized, so you start off well, you go through everything, and then you conclude nicely, that's worth 2 marks. If you have good structure and you have the citations, that's 2 marks, and then overall how thoughtful the whole process is. So the style of this, if you've never done this kind of paper before, the style of this paper is like, it should be, if I was doing the paper, it's like I'm sitting here talking to you, right? So I'm saying, okay, so I'm writing a paper about the course that I took this term, and in this paper I'm going to go through all the technologies that we did in the course, and I'm going to talk about, how I liked them or didn't like them, and whether I think they're useful in industry. And then I'm going to sort of give that summary up. So first, let me start with week number 1. That's how it should be, right? It should be just like a conversational kind of paper. So it should be easy to write. It should be, right? Except if you're not used to doing it, it's hard maybe to get into it. But if you simply think of it as it should be conversational, you're telling Mark what your experience was in the course, then it will be much more successful. You try to write it like an essay, and you worry too much about the structure, it's not going to work for you. So you want to try to write it like a personal story that you're telling about your experience with the course. Okay? So think, make sure it's personal. Like this is what I handed you, right? Make sure you do the minimum number of pages, cover all the technologies, focus on one technology, it's worth 30%, that's a lot. Let's do. Anything else I need to say? I think I covered all this stuff. Right? If you haven't done this, I have some information about it here. You can always do a search for, how do you write a reflection paper or reflect paper, right? Something like that. But you've heard my advice, how I think that you should do it. So hopefully that will work for you. I don't know if there's anything else I need to say about this. And now I'm going to be grading these things. So if you so here's the biggest challenge you have, to actually do it. Okay, so I always get a bunch of papers that people they didn't actually do the assignment. right? So they gave an hour, they came up with something that wasn't really the assignment, it was a bunch of words, and they gave it to me, and so the mark won't be very good. If you can actually find the place in your schedule, and I know it's tough, but find a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon in your schedule, and you sit down and you write it, it should be pretty good, right? And if English is not your first language, I'm not judging your grammar or your spelling super hard. I mean, it's, you know, shouldn't be completely littered with spelling, right? You know, any program you're using, if you're writing Microsoft Word or whatever you're using, they all have spell checkers. You have no excuse to have misspelled words, no matter what language you're writing in, because there's spell checkers for there. But if your grammar and your sentence structure isn't perfect, I won't be grading harshly on that. It's whether you are actually going to tell me a story. And you can't tell a story without actually relaxing and using your brain to do it, right? So that's assignment number 7. Try not to wait until week 15, Thursday or Friday. That may seem like a good idea, but it's better if you sit down maybe this weekend and get started. So maybe this weekend, open up a Word document and sort of, you know, try to figure out what you're going to do and, you know, do some writing. It doesn't have, but you'll get started on that process of doing this reflection paper. Any questions about that? So I talked about this on Wednesday from other class, so I think I answered all the questions that they had when I just described it to you. Like, they had a few questions, so I specified a bit more, but do you have any questions about this? And of course, you can ask me next week too, right? If you know, or any time you can send me an email. But I hope that it's understandable what I want you to do. Right? Okay. So let's finish up with so last week, if you were here, I hope you were here last week. I hope everybody that was here last week had a chance to take a 3D point, take a point cloud, bring it into Revit and try some modeling so you have an idea that it's not too hard to do, right? I mean, hope you found that but the experience, it was relatively easy. There may be a few challenges to it, but pretty much I hope you went pretty well. So I have an assignment related to that. It's a group assignment, so everybody doesn't have to do the whole assignment. You can split up the work, and that's what we're going to do in just a moment. I'll get you to split this work up. But the idea for this assignment is that you're going to take the point cloud that you had, or if you didn't get a point cloud, if for whatever yours didn't work or you weren't here that week or something, I can give you a point cloud to use, and you're going to make a model of the space of that point cloud, and you're going to, I'm going to go through what you're going to do. So basically, as a group, you're going to come up with some information. So, this is not Tuesday. Second. It's the one after that, right? 9. No, not 9. Yeah, it is the 9. That's what's sorry. So I want you to finish this assignment before we have our class in week. No, that is right. Before next, So I want you to finish this. I want you to try to finish this for our class next week, because I'm going to show you in a few minutes. I'm going to show you how to make 360 tours. And so if you finish this assignment before next week's class, then in our class next week, we can run through that, and you can basically do that tour situation. So if you can organize yourself and your group and get this modeling and what I'm about to show you done before next week's class, that was for my Wednesday class, is Tuesday. Let's say Thursday is better for us, right? Thursday. So that's going to be December 4th. So if you can do it before that class, there will not be a late penalty if you don't do it before that time. But if you don't have it done, that means in that class you're not going to be able to sort of work with us through, or you won't be able to ask questions about the 360 tour if you don't have it done by that time. So we're going to try to organize this effort today, and your goal is to try to get this work done. So let me, without further ado, tell you what I want you to do. I think I sort of talked about this last week. So as a group, you're going to decide which people in the group are going to do which parts of this assignment. But basically, you're going to make a simple Revit model from the point cloud. You're going to populate that model that you make with some objects and materials. You're going to just create a project report about it, like the steps that you took, like we went to the space, we used the scanner, we had a point cloud, we did the point cloud in Revit, we did some modeling, we put some stuff, but you're going to basically highlight that report, and I'll show you examples in a moment. So these are the things you're going to want to put in your report that you do, and then you're going to submit that. So I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. So it's a group project, so every person in the group should only have to spend like 1 or 2 hours doing the work. It's not intended to be a huge project because you're splitting the work up. If you're in a group that's not functioning very well, or everybody in the group is going to dump the work on you, then it's going to be more time than that. But hopefully that won't be a problem. And you're going to be submitting 2 things. A PDF of the report that you do to Brightspace, and then your model is going to be submitted to the Teams folder. I'm going to get your Revit model from you. Okay, so everybody in your group should take on 1 or more of these tasks. So I sort of split these things up. So I'm calling it Revit Modeling A, B, C, D. So Revit Modeling A is floors, Revit Modeling B is walls, Revit Modeling C is ceilings, Revit Modeling D is interior elements, Revit Modeling E is windows and doors. So I'm just going to hand this out. I have this printed out to give you. So I'll do that. But I'll just finish showing you this first. Then somebody in the group should populate this model with objects and materials, and somebody should do the project report, and then somebody should try to make sure the whole group performs. So I'm going to ask you in a moment, after I show you some more information, I'll give the handout, I'm going to ask you to, if you have your group members here, to figure out this split, like who's going to do what. So, but before that, let me show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about doing. So what I want you to do is, in the model of your space, I want you to make what I call a project review space, right? This kind of thing. And I'm going to show you examples of some student projects from last year or the year before in just a moment. But basically, in the space that you scanned, which is a small area, I want you to set up this sort of design review space. So some pinup boards, some models, some seating, maybe some refreshments or drinks or something, whatever would sort of make it a nice space for somebody to come and take a look at your project. So imagine it's like an end-of-year show, where you're showing a project to you're having a display for people to come and take a look at your project. So the workflow is, you make the model, right? You did this last week, hopefully, all this step. So you know this process to get to this step already. The populating objects, like I mentioned, some of the stuff, I'll show you some examples in just a moment of what I think you should put in, and then somebody creates this project report. So this is in the piece of paper I'm going to hand out to you. It's got this information, but it's also here in the presentation. So let me just skip back this and show you some examples. So I gave you this last week, how to do this. I have extra copies here if somebody wasn't here and wants some copies of this. I think it's posted online too. The process of bringing a point cloud in to Revit. And this is some examples of some reports I got previously, right? So from students. So they basically have a title page with this title page information and a nice render of their project, right? So here's one student project. You can see they've got some donuts on the table here. Those students have something set up, right? They just set up a place that was like a design review space. Here's another example of it. Here's an example of the process that the students did, right? So we surveyed the space, we used the scanner, we made a point cloud, then we brought the point cloud into Revit and we modeled, and so you can see they have some screen grabs of like the Revit model with the point cloud showing that. And then here was our final result, right? We built this model and we put some stuff in. So I want you to, whoever's responsible for, for making sure for the project, make sure whoever's doing the Revit modeling saves some screen grabs, or you can do some screen grabs yourself. So I'm going to set you up with a Autodesk Construction Cloud group. So you'll have a group to be able to share the model if you want more than one person working on the Revit model. So make sure I make a note that I don't forget to do that. So I'll set that up for you so that you can, whoever's working on the Revit model or anybody else who wants to share that work, will be able to use, a collaborative. So ACC groups. Okay. So here's some more examples. Floor plans, elevations. So out of Revit, once you make the model, you can just spit these out, right? So this is not extra work for you to simply split out some section views, some plan views out of Revit. So in your team, I want you to decide on the split of these activities. So I'm going to hand this sheet out to you, again, just so everybody has a copy of this. But I want you to take a few minutes right now, if you're here, if your group is here, to figure that out. Who might work on what part of this assignment. So I have these printouts, I'm going to hand it out to you. And everybody doesn't need to take one, but if you want one, I'll give you one. So let's say we'll take, let's say we'll take 5 minutes. So if you're here with your group, I'm going to hand these out. I want you to think about, okay, who's going to do whatever. And then in your Teams channel, for your group, I want you to just quickly post there, either right now in the class or sometime before tonight, what the split is. Now, if your group isn't mostly here, it's going to be hard for you to figure out. If, say, 3 members or 2 members of your group aren't present today, you'll have to figure that out with them. But you can take the things you want to do the most yourself, and then they have to do the other stuff. That's the advantage of being here. So do that, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so I'm going to hand these out if anybody wants one. It's just sort of it's the assignment. It might help you to be able to just write on the piece of paper like what your split is going to be for this. Again, if you don't want these pieces of paper, just say no thanks, or you can just leave them behind when you leave, and I'll recycle them myself. So if you just hand those out, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Again, if you don't want to take these, you don't need a lot of paper, just leave it here, okay? I'll take them and use them, thank you.
Do you remember when you shared it?
You can, yes, yeah, you don't.
You shared
That's absolutely fine, thank you very much.
us and Neil.
So remember, what quality am I expecting of this? So I'm expecting you simply to demonstrate this stuff, right? I mean, this whole assignment I think is worth 10%. So I'm expecting it to be look nice, but isn't not like your design project for the term, right? So you should be spending 1 or 2 or maybe at most 3 hours on this. But probably 1 or 2 is all it should take you, maybe even half an hour depending on what you're doing, right? So I don't want you spending 5 hours on this unless you really want to. Just show me as a group that you know how to do this stuff, right? You know how to make the model from the point cloud. Show it to me in a project report. Right? Show examples of what you did in those steps, and give me your Revit model, and I'll quickly take a look at your Revit model, and I'll take a look at those steps. So I hope your group is here. If your group is here, try to organize this right now. And if you want, you can post it in Teams right now in my class on Wednesday. About half the groups, by the time 5 minutes passed, they had posted who's working on what part of the project, and the other half of the groups, everybody wasn't there, so I didn't get them until later on in the day or in the evening. I got a couple at 5 minutes to midnight. So let's say give you a few more minutes to think about this before we move on to the next thing, which is we're going to take a look at 360 imagery. So I think you'll find that interesting, and we'll try to set the whole 360 imagery project up in our class today before you leave, so that you are, next week we'll be able to just execute it. Sort of like we did with the point cloud last week. If you follow along with me, then when we go to work on it next week, it should be relatively easy to do. And if anybody wants, so we'll just call this, why don't we call this a break as well, since it's like 10 to. So if anybody wants to use the washroom or get something to drink or just stretch, we'll resume our class in 5 minutes. I'll check and see if you're ready to go at that time. Yeah, you see it? You see it? Yeah, so in Teams.